Hi, Pat.
Hi, Susan. I'm Patricia Syvrud, and I'm the Program Development Manager for a new program that we're developing at the University of Delaware called Minerals, Materials, and Society. It's going to be a 15-credit graduate mini-masters, and we have a very robust research arm already, and we want to eventually develop professional training for different sectors of the industry, and our program is going to look at extractives and minerals, and not only the science behind them, but also the policy, supply chain, environmental, and socioeconomic issues that all supply chains are addressing right now. So I'm also the immediate past executive director of the World Diamond Council, and I currently sit on the board of the United States Kimberly Process Authority, which is a nonprofit organization that was set up in the United States to handle the logistics of the Kimberly Process certification scheme.
Great. Yeah, I know, and I love the program that you're doing with
University of Delaware.
University of Delaware. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I haven't had enough coffee this morning. And also
time change.
Yeah, the Jewelry Development Index that's come out of that. I know that we are all using it not only in the jewelry industry, but it seems in many other industries outside of that. So some great tools and great work that you're doing, and I wish I could take all those classes that you're developing.
Yeah, well, and you'll be able to, because most of them will be online, so
it'll be great.
Yeah, and that's just so you know, it's to launch in 2020.
Okay.
So.
Great. And then, so, I've been really interested in understanding the Kimberly process, because I think we hear about it and we try and follow it. And I was excited to see that you had that new position with them. So in the Kimberly process, does every country have the same amount of say in what happens? Every country that's involved in the Kimberly process? Or do some countries have more say than other countries?
That's a really interesting question. And having been in the jewelry industry my entire career, and I try to keep myself well informed. I really didn't learn about how the Kimberly process really functions until I got inside it. So I think a lot of people in the industry don't even realize that the Kimberly process was set up via a United Nations mandate, and that it's actually the format or the infrastructure of the Kimberly process is set up just like the UN, in that the countries, every country who is, to legally trade in rough diamonds, you have to be a member of the Kimberly process globally, and you have to comply with the administrative directives of the Kimberly process certification scheme, is what the whole kind of underpinning of the mechanism for the Kimberly process. And the countries are the voting members. In a sense, yes, every country has the same weight, because and this is not unusual for organizations, international global organizations, they make decisions by consensus. And the way they do consensus is 100% of the voting parties have to agree in order for decisions to be made. So from that perspective, the countries are the voting members. Everyone has to agree to move things forward. And then the industry is represented through the World Diamond Council at the Kimberly process. And then civil society is represented through, or nonprofit organizations are represented through something called the Civil Society Coalition.
Right.
Okay. So civil society and industry acts more as kind of like lobbyists within the Kimberly process.
Okay.
But not only that, we also, or the industry and civil society participates fully in the Kimberly process as far as the tasks are considered. So there's a number of different working groups. It's a peer review system. They have a working group on statistics that reviews the statistics annually for every country. And so the civil society and World Diamond Council participate in those committees. So they act as if they're a country in doing the work of the Kimberly process, but they don't have the decision-making sway. So in a sense, they're more like lobbyists within the Kimberly process. And certain countries have stronger voices within the Kimberly process because they're chairs of different committees and and have more sway. I mean, obviously the countries that are bigger producers of rough diamonds, what they say, a lot of the smaller countries will just say, yeah, what they say kind of thing, because they have more of a stake in seeing things progress a certain way. The challenge with consensus is in other organizations, when you don't agree and you've made a decision by consensus and everyone doesn't agree, the idea or the concept of consensus is everyone then works together to find a solution that all can agree on. Whereas what tends to happen in real life is they don't agree, it doesn't move forward. So there are nuances to working with consensus, which is why it's accepted widely, because the idea is, okay, people can't agree on this particular thing, so we will work together to find the solution to see how we can move forward. But frequently it just gets stymied and everything kind of comes to a halt because, okay, we can't agree, so we can't move this forward. And that's kind of not the idea of consensus and what that actually means. So
I understand. Yeah, that happens. So I see also that the UN is trying to move forward within the Kimberly process the sustainability goals, and they've talked about redoing some of the ecosystems, environmental protections. There's also more support for artisanal mining and women and gender. So how do you work in all of those things that we want worked into the Kimberly process?
Well, I think truly the World Diamond Council should be commended right now for bringing this to the forefront of the UN. Every year the Kimberly Process chair has made a report to, and I don't know if it's the UN General Assembly or a subgroup of the United Nations, but this is the first year where the WDC has actually brought to the greater UN this idea of, look, we need to address the broader issues, because the reality is the way the Kimberly process was set up, for what it was set up to do, it's been extremely successful. It was not set up to address, the issues around artisanal mining, environmental impact. It's not an enforcement organization as well. So in some respects, a lot of the criticism for the Kimberly process is slightly misplaced in that that's not what it was created to do. However, those are the issues that people care about. And where do you, push to have something change? It's where the money is. And so the push has been to the industry by NGOs and the public, because they're the ones buying and, selling and trading the rough diamonds. But you're talking about issues that really need to be dealt with by governments on the ground, right? I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done by the NGOs and the governments and the powers that be on the ground in these countries. And so by bringing it to the forefront of the United Nations and saying, look, we want to do something, and having them make a statement saying that they support this idea of trying to address these issues within the Kimberly process was a huge breakthrough and kind of a huge step forward this year.
Yeah, I think everyone was really excited about it. So yes, good work.
I had nothing to do with it.
Well,
for sure, I had nothing to do with it.
It's nice that it's happening.
Yes.
And we feel that there's going to be change, and I think that that's good.
Yeah,
it's
really
not
good.
Easy, but thank you for talking to us about the Kimberly process.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here. It was a pleasure to see you.
Great. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, thank you.